is going on here? There we go. Thought we were having some technical difficulties. However, as usual, we are the Noise Brigade, starting off the show on the right foot and not at all awkwardly. Uh, Welcome, Tom. How are you today?
Doing fine, Bobby. We had some pretty fun episodes there doing some reminiscing on video games. I really had a lot of fun with Richie there, and we'll have to do that again. But today I figured let's kind of shift gears and football season's right around the corner.
That's right. Football season is starting up. Um, less than 2 weeks. I think we'll be getting a Thursday night game to kick things off this year, and then the Eagles started off on the 12th. And let's not pretend that that's not our rooting interest. Um, and it's been an eventful summer. We just hit today the cut down day, so everybody's cut down to their 53-man rosters. That you know, it's funny. They say, "Oh, this is our final roster going into the season." No, it's not. No, it's not, because you're going to sign people that got cut, or you're going to make trades. You're going to do this or do that. So, but everybody's at their base where they're going to start from to get ready for the season. And we saw some surprises.
Yeah, big one today. Cam Newton.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been a guy that's been a fan of Cam Newton since he came into the league. I thought he carried himself well. Some questionable outfits, but by and large, he carries himself well. He does a lot for his community. He's not out there getting in trouble and doing everything. He's one of the league's stand-up guys. But man, he's scaring me now because I have a feeling that he's going to go somewhere that I don't want to see him.
Yeah, that I'd thought about that because it was rumored that he was potentially on his way out of New England, and this is prior to the Eagles obviously picking up Minshew, and I was like, wow, does Cam actually have a fit in there even with Flacco and all that mess, and it's like no, it's all Jalen Hurts right now, right? That's our get. That's what we're gonna kind of strap to. And then the kind of reality sets in, and it's like, what if he ends up in the division?
Exactly, and that's my biggest concern. And you look at the other teams in our division. So obviously Dallas has Dak Prescott, and not much behind him. They released Ben DiNucci. They released whoever their other backup was. They have one guy, and I can't remember his name, but they're counting on it. I would imagine that with Dak having the injuries he had last season and the problems he had in camp and in the preseason workouts and everything, they're going to want to beef up their quarterback position, the backup quarterback.
Because they're back up to Dak, who, we'll get into this. Dak is coming off of an injured 2020 season. Is Cooper Rush, the ever household name that he is. So, yeah, as much as I hate to say that, I think you were spot on before we started the podcast here. We're just talking kind of rundown on the show. Yeah, Cam, I think there's a fit right there in Dallas for him.
I mean, and even if by some miracle he doesn't end up in Dallas, look at the other two teams in a division. So you've got New York, who's got Danny Dimes, who honestly is probably out as starter unless he really has a renaissance this season. And I just don't see it, not with the way that team's constructed. Their offensive line, they didn't do enough. Their defense sucks. Really the biggest thing they have going for them is Saquon Barkley, and they've got a couple good receivers. They do have some good receivers, but they've got injuries at tight end, and they didn't do enough to improve along the lines.
No, and Saquon's another one that has to stay healthy.
Yeah,
at this point, he's talented. He's top flight running back, but if he's not healthy, good luck, right. New York.
And then looking down, down I-95 a little bit down to Washington. Fitzpatrick has owned us, and we'll get into this, once we get into, because we're going to do a week by week on the Eagles schedule. but he's absolutely lit us up every time he's played us. But man, he's aging. He's in a new offense again. He has a lot of weapons around him, but I don't know that I would, hang my hat on the fact that he's going to be Fitz magic through an entire season.
No, no, you're right. Only problem with him is that he'll have games where he throws for 400 yards. That's just what he does.
Right. And
It's
then
ridiculous.
he'll come back and he'll throw for 20 and 5 interceptions. I mean, that's, an exaggeration clearly, but um, he's not somebody that I would be willing to go into a season with as my starting quarterback and think, oh, yep, he's going to be the one. He's going to be the one to make it happen. Ryan Fitzpatrick again. He's great in starts. But it's been a while since he's strung together a full season of greatness. And
Right.
Granted, their defense is really good too. Their defense is probably the best in the division, but I just don't see. I could see a situation where Washington picks up Cam and uses him as a backup just in case Fitzmagic tends to fizzle this year.
Yeah, that's not a bad guess there. I think it's highly probable that he I think you're spot on. He'll end up in a Cowboys uniform. Just tends to make the most sense right now. But we'll see. Maybe we're completely wrong here, and he ends up, somewhere we're not even thinking of. So
Yeah. So before we get into the rundown of the season, like I said, we're gonna go game by game. Let's just briefly run down the 53-man roster. I know there were a couple surprises for me before the 53 even started getting cut down. I was extremely happy to see we got Gardner Minshew. I had mentioned it a couple weeks back. I was like, oh man, you know what? That would make a great addition to, as a good backup for us. Obviously, I want to roll with Hurts this year. I think Hurts is the answer, but God forbid something happens, he gets hurt, or he just shows us by week 10 that he's not the guy. Then we have somebody that has shown they can at least play on. I mean, and he was playing with teams that, as bad as we were last year, they were 10 times worse, and he had a lot of success. So I think that it's a win-win pickup for them, either great as a backup quarterback, or he could work as a serviceable starting quarterback and maybe more. So I think that was a good pickup. What did you think about Minshew?
yeah, I like it a lot. Particularly the fact that again, I'm all in on Hurts. I'm really hoping that he just flourishes this year. He's top of the food chain, kind of all by himself. But I think Minshew just is a great serviceable backup. Of course, you have Flacco in the mix there too, which I think is nice, just in the fact of Flacco can kind of have that coaching role, if you will, too. He's got a lot of experience and a lot of winning experience too. So I think it's a really nice fit for the Eagles, grabbing Minshew. And I made put the thing in here that and I forget who put this together, but all three main characters from Napoleon Dynamite have now worn an Eagles uniform. So yeah, we got Uncle Rico back there now.
Finally, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah. So no, I think it's a good move. But moving on, obviously a lot of these weren't surprises on and we'll stick on the offense here.
Yeah.
Like we all knew Miles Sanders was coming back and going to be a top of the running back depth chart. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The dude is ridiculous. Whatever. The one I'm kind of curious about looking, running back wise is I'm curious to see Kenny Gainwell here. I don't. Do you have anything on Gainwell?
Oh man, he's an explosive receiver out of the backfield. He can move, man. He is very, very shifty. He is very agile. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. There's been people out there saying that they would not be surprised if he has overtaken Miles Sanders as the number one back if Miles Sanders can't keep hold of the ball, because he's been having some issues with catching and with ball security in the preseason and everything.
Hmm.
and in training camp. And they were saying, look, man, Nick Sirianni's offense is very much predicated on bubble screens and screen passes to the running backs and stuff like that. So kind of like a West Coast offense, like we saw under Andy Reid almost, but obviously modified. And so they were saying that there's a chance Kenny Gainwell could take significant snaps from Miles Sanders. I don't think it'll go that far. I think he'll be an integral part of the offense, but I don't think he's taken over for Miles Sanders. But when you throw Boston Scott in there, I think that that's a good mix. I am surprised that they didn't keep a guy like Jordan Howard around. I thought he really, you know, showed his drive and showed his skills in the preseason and in the the joint practices and stuff. And I'm very surprised. I will be surprised if they don't. He's a guy that they don't bring back at some point down the line, assuming he wants to come back to the team. But I would love to see him back on the team at some point.
Yeah, no, I've always liked Jordan Howard. So that was kind of like I said, kind of a surprise to me as well. But I do like who they have right now on the 53 man. So no pun intended. I think they'll be fun to run with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wide receivers. We don't have to go like person to person here, but you had made a comment, and I kind of agree with you before we started doing this. Look like old Whiteside's coming back.
Yeah, I can't believe JJ Arcega-Whiteside is coming back. I kind of thought his time was done. I did. I was watching the preseason game, the final one against the Jets, and I did think that he had a nice catch and run. And then, on the very next play, he turned around on the kickoff and went and just absolutely smashed it going down the field. If he stays, I can. I don't know, man. I don't. I think his grip on a spot is tenuous at best. I was surprised they only stayed with 5 receivers. Typically, they'll go with 6. They went really light on receivers, but I think what they might do, and what I would love to see them do, and I don't know if they will or not, but Brashad Perriman got let go by the Lions, and I think he could be a guy that they might sign to replace him, or even like we talked about, there's going to be guys that are going to be put on IR. There's going to be guys that are going to be put in different with different designations. That's going to open up some roster spots, and I could see Arcega-Whiteside maybe getting cut, even now that the Eagles have seen that Brashad Perriman's out there and he could add something to the roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing too, moving, as far as catching goes, Eagles have always, done this last several years, very tight end heavy. And a lot of that I think is in fact, yeah, Ertz has always been, top flight tight end, and obviously Godare has, shown that he is too. But really, go back the last several years, the Eagles just have not been deep in wide outs. So they've had to rely on the running backs catching balls out of the backfield, and they've had to rely on the tight ends for a lot of their passing game. So you had mentioned this before, Tyree Jackson. I know he's not going to be starting the year, but man, I'm excited to see this guy.
Absolutely. Tyree Jackson, I think, is going to be your replacement for Zach Ertz next year. Obviously, Ertz, had his falling out with the front office. And to his credit, man, he hasn't pulled a Carson. He hasn't pulled a Ben Simmons and said, get me out of here. I'm not going to play for you. He said, you know what? I'll be there. I'll be there. I'm going to work my butt off, and I'm going to show you that I deserve that new contract. I'm not going to re-sign, but I'll play out my contract with you. And honestly, that's all you can ask for. He's being the consummate professional. But I think that with Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Tyree Jackson, and Jack Stoll, I think what'll probably happen is after week 1, the Eagles will put Tyree Jackson on IR, which will allow him to come back. I think it's week 7 or week 8. And then they'll end up signing Richard Rodgers. And what that'll do for him is, I believe it's either after week 1 or after week 2. The way the CBA works out is that you can sign veterans to the veteran minimum, and it it's not guaranteed. So it's a way for teams to get around having to pay out guaranteed money to somebody that they may or may not keep on the roster long term. But I think Richard Rodgers will be back. And, it'll be interesting to see what they do with tight end going forward through this season.
Kind of looking at the line. Again, I don't have to necessarily go into any of these, but obviously good to see Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, and Jason Kelsey all back. And obviously a lot of the stalwarts that have been there for, years now. So that's great. I think we're, still still with room for improvement there. But it's just good to, have a little bit of continuity at the same time. So
Yeah.
what's your take on the line this year?
So we went line heavy, which is good because of all the injuries we had last year. I can definitely see a situation where an Andre Dillard gets traded, which would free up a spot for one of the guys we cut because that's the one good thing about this team. And the bad thing at the same time is we had so much talent along the line that we ended up having to cut some players that I really liked. Sua Opeda and LaRaven Clark come to mind. Either one of them I could see back with the team pending a trade of Andre Dillard. Now, will they trade him? I don't know because I don't know if they're going to get what they think he's worth. But at this point, I think we can cut bait with him. It sucks to admit that a first round pick was not who we thought he was, but I just don't think he has the makeup. Geez, Lily, stop snoring. Sorry, you can hear that. But when he was told he was going to play right tackle instead of left tackle, and he, instead of trying to go out and do his best, he started making excuses right away. And I don't think that's the kind of guy that they want on this team. I know it's not a guy that I would want on my team. You're a professional football player. You're paid to play tackle, whether it's left tackle, right tackle, north tackle, south tackle. You're paid to play on the offensive line. And to pay as much as they're paying for him to be a backup for one position on the line where you've got 5 positions that you need filled in case of an emergency. He just doesn't fit on the team to me.
All right. Defensively, again, we've got some guys that are, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and some of these, obviously these great players that, I'm obviously, I love the people that are around for a while. I think that's the part of the best part about being a Philly sports fan is that, these players that are with you, or they leave and they come back, they just, those are the people that, they know they really truly love the team. But there are some, again, it's kind of like I said with the O line, some room for improvement. I'm excited to kind of see what happens here with just what they do this year. Because and again, I know this is kind of going to sound very open ended, but if this defense can just stay healthy and just keep on it, that's obviously what's going to drive the Eagles, mainly in the sense of, not that I don't trust, Hurts, putting up, offensive spectacles every game and all that. I just don't want to lean on that.
Right. No,
So, and I'll get that whenever we get into the thing. There's a couple times where I come up and I honestly think that, that the old adage is true. Defense is going to end up winning some games. And I think a lot of the Eagles' success this season, take that or leave that however you want it, we'll get into it, really hinges on the defense this year.
Yeah, I agree. And what you're looking at, if we look at the ends and the tackles as a whole, if we look at that unit, that defensive line, obviously your defensive tackles, you've got Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are your top 2. And in the past, when Jim Schwartz was in charge of the defense, he would be throwing, he called them fastballs. He would get different players in every play. Every play, you're getting fresh rushers. But I think Cox and Hargrave, and then we had our rookie this year, Milton Williams, who's coming in out of Florida. Outstanding talent, can play defensive end, can play up the middle. I think he's going to show a lot. I think having Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave healthy at the same time is gonna shore up the middle.
Right.
Um, and then adding a guy like Ryan Kerrigan and seeing how he can help the young guys because he's still got stuff in the tank. He's still got juice in the tank, man. Brandon Graham still has juice in the tank. But then you got young guys too, like Derek Barnett, who's yet to take that next step, but could very well this year. This could be the breakout year. Josh Sweat is another one. Young guy, high motor, super talented, could really take off this year. I'm very excited to see where these players go. I will say they went a little light on defensive tackle, only having 4 in. We do have T.Y. McGill, who was put on the reserve COVID list. So, technically, I guess they have 5, but it's, it's the strength of the team for a reason. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Jonathan Gannon's defense can do and seeing how he plays with his defensive fronts.
Yeah, no, agreed. And at corner, again, I don't know. I'm a big Darius Slay fan. I'm kind of hoping that he puts up. And again, you have Devontae Maddox out there, and at safety, Rodney McLeod, man. I was a big fan of his, and I'm just really hoping that he kind of keeps it up and actually proves that maybe you know um, in the defensive passing game that we can pick some balls and have at it.
I agree, and I think the new the defensive front, so our defensive line, our defensive ends, I think are going to help out the backfield a lot. And you've got Steve Nelson as your new cornerback too. We've got Zach McPherson, who I think is going to develop into a good cornerback. And then Rodney McLeod is going to be back. It looks like week 1, so I'm happy about that. We signed Anthony Harris from Minnesota. I think he's going to be good. Kevon Wallace will develop. Marcus Epps is going to continue to develop. One area that you skipped and that I'm really excited to see how it works out this year, and we haven't been able to say this for a long time, and that's going to be our linebackers.
Yes, yes.
Because
Uh,
we've got a lot of young talent at linebacker, and Jonathan Gannon has a very aggressive mentality when it comes to his linebackers. So I'm very interested to see how this actually plays out and where it goes from here. It could be
yeah,
it could be the surprise of the team.
I think Eric Wilson is going to be, a true get here. I think he really showed growth the last couple seasons in Minnesota. He's, got the ability, obviously to pick too. So he, I think this could possibly be one of those. I think you're spot on. This could be the crown jewel, if you will, of the defense.
Yeah,
It is, and I'm not saying him necessarily, but his linebacker, any of the linebackers, really.
yeah, and it's been a position for the past. I mean, God, for since Seth Joyner and Byron Evans were here, and well, okay, we'll go up to Trot. So when Trot was here, he was the last linebacker that I could name that you could say, oh man, he's a stud. You know, uh, Michael Kendricks had his flashes, Jordan Hicks had his flashes, but they weren't guys that you looked at and you were like, you know what? If I'm on the offense, I'm afraid to play against that guy. And we really haven't
Yeah,
had that since Trotter was here. But
right. No, I
I
agree.
feel like this team, this linebacking core, I think is really going to step up and show, surprise some people.
Going to special teams. Jake Elliott's back. Um, I solid kicker. That's the one thing. We went through. I always look back at it and say, you had so much consistency in years past at that position, and then it was a little wishy-washy, and now we're hopefully back to some actual years-long consistency here. So,
Well,
um,
Elliott, honestly, I'll tell you what, I, and I feel confident in saying this. I don't have any insider knowledge, but if his contract wasn't guaranteed for what it was guaranteed for, he'd have been gone after last year. Um, Last year he could not hit a normal, like a kick. It was like he had the yips. Um, there were games where it was a 35 yarder and he was shanking it. And he had issues from all over the field, especially with short kicks, though, which was really weird. Um, but I think based on partly on the fact that, they wanted to give him another year, and partly based on, or mostly rather based on the amount of guaranteed money he had in his contract, they kind of felt compelled to give him another year. And I think it's going to pay off. I think he's going to get back that consistency. I think maybe it was just a down year. But I still, if for no other reason, that 61 yarder against the Giants that really turned around the 2017 season, I feel like you have to give him another shot. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
so, but where it's going to be interesting, we bring Rick Lovato back, the long snapper. I want to see Aaron Sipos, who's our new punter. I think the Eagles really screwed up. I think they thought that, and I'm blanking on his name. The punter was, I think they thought he was going to come back, and he didn't. And so I think they were scrambling. He looks like he's gonna be pretty decent, so we'll give him a chance. But if your
Yeah,
season hinges on whether or not you sign the right punter, I think maybe you had bigger problems.
yeah. This guy is the Australian footballer. He plays college at Auburn. Um, we'll see. You know, whatever. That was one of those things that, like you just said, hopefully it doesn't matter a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, was it Cameron Johnston? Was that who it was?
Yes, yes, yes. I wanted to say Dirk Johnson, but he was back. He was back during Andy Reid's time. Um,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and
not
that's
one
my
him.
that's my 2K5 kicking in. Um, so yes, thank you for looking that up for me, because I would have felt like
Yeah, I was blank on the name too. I had to figure it out. So, all right, let's we'll kind of go through the schedule here, and you and I were on the same page for a lot of this, but we do have some differences. And so, what do you think? Week one, we'll go through this week by week and until we hit the end of the season. So, week one, Eagles are at Atlanta.
all right. So I'm not going to get a lot of love for this, but I'm going to go with a loss. And I've kind of written up a little reason why for each of these games. So I'm going to read it and see what you think. So for some reason, the Falcons always seem to have our number in Atlanta, which is true. I can't remember, and I'm sure that we've won more recently than I can remember in Atlanta. Um, but we could be coming in this game 16-0 with the best overall team in the league, and somehow they would figure out a way to beat us. The Eagles in 1993 coming into Atlanta at 7-2 come to mind, when we then went on to lose 7 straight and finish 7-9 and cost Rich Kotite his job, which, silver linings and all.
Yeah.
But I think our defense is going to look good in this game. I just think that Kyle Pitts is going to give the Falcons offense a dimension that we're not ready to account for yet. I think he's going to go off, and I think that we're going to end up losing this game, and we'll start the season 0-1.
All right, so I differ on this one, and I have no rationale. Like, you actually gave good reasonings. I don't, other than I just think Eagles will start hot. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I certainly don't. I think it'll be a close game, maybe within a field goal. One of those 17-14 type instances. I think defense comes up big on both sides of the ball. And I'm probably wrong, but I'm just I'm hoping for a week one win, because that's what I want. So I'm going with my heart on this one, and I'm going to say week one win, close game though.
Okay. I mean, and honestly, I could see it going either way. I just feel like without getting any first team, or without getting any actual game reps in the preseason, I don't think the offense is going to come out sharp. I think Hurts is going to get off to a little bit of a stumbling start, but I think it'll pick up, which you'll see in the coming weeks. So for week 2, we've got the Niners coming to Philly. And I think this is where the Eagles get their first win of the season. And Trey Lance, Jimmy G, it doesn't matter. The Eagles offense picks it up here. They rough up a stunned Niners defense in the home opener. Nick Bosa is going to make some plays on defense. He's going to, get through and disrupt a couple things, but by and large, our line's going to do its thing. They're going to pave the lane for our running backs. Our wide receivers are going to be able to get open against their defensive backs. And Hurts looks like QB Eagles from Tecmo's Super Bowl. So at this point, some of the more excitable of our fan base start looking up where the Super Bowl is getting played this year, and they start looking for hotels. We're going to be 1-1 after week 2.
Yeah, no, this was when I was in complete agreement with you. I think, they're at home opener. Eagles go off. Hurts just, runs up the numbers. Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. I do think that there's going to be some issues there, maybe more in the passing game. I'm thinking this is going to be a straight up, a lot of on ground game, whether it's Hurts's legs or Miles Sanders or whoever it may be. But I think they take the home opener and they come out on top here by at least a couple touchdowns and 2-0 start for the Eagles.
All right, now this one, I'm going to make you say what I picked this game because it hurts my heart to say those words.
Yeah, you and I both thought this. That the Eagles will play the Cowboys week 3 in Dallas, and we both that they're going to lose.
So let me preface it by saying that it really hinges on who's under center. If Dak is playing, we're going to lose. I think we're going to lose. You play the game because you never really know. But if he can't shake the injuries, or if and it's going to depend too on whether or not Cam is there. I feel like Dak will play. That our defense is still trying to put it together. I think the Cowboys are just gonna beat us. I think they will. I don't think their defense is as improved as people think. They certainly improved their linebacking core, but I think that their line and their defensive backfield just aren't as good as ours. But after this game, everybody who was looking at the hotels in Miami, because that's where the Super Bowl is this year, is trying to get a refund. And it's just going to be a tough game. I think we do lose and we fall to 1-2.
Yeah, to me, this game completely hinges on Dak. So, and his health. If that, to me, Dak's a proven 4,000 plus yarder, 40 touchdown type quarterback in a season. Obviously we're not Cowboys fans, but you can respect the player, his talents, and he's certainly a very talented quarterback. So as long as he's healthy, I just don't see the Eagles winning in Dallas. I hate to say it, but I just think that is the case. Now, even if, let's say, the Cowboys do pick up Cam Newton as a backup, Dak's not healthy, I honestly think week 3 is still too early for Cam to have really figured out everything going on in the Cowboys offense. Just a hunch.
Yeah.
Maybe enough for the Eagles to squeak that one out, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I predict Dak is healthy and the Eagles lose and go to 2-1 for my prediction here.
All right. So that brings us to week 4. And this is going to bring the Kansas City Chiefs to town where, no surprise here. I don't think we win this game.
No.
Yeah. It's a case of playing a team that's not only on another level, they're in an entirely different galaxy. They come into this game and they rough us up. It's over in the third quarter. They beat us. We're 1-3. And the dumber among us are calling for Minshew Mania too.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much on this other than Mahomes is going to absolutely throttle the Eagles. Yeah, there's not much to say.
Yeah.
To me, at this point, after week 4, they'll be down to 2-2. So I'm a little more optimistic than you are, at least.
Yes.
I have 500 right now, quarter way, or at least through week 4.
Yeah. So at this point, yeah, you're a little more optimistic than me. But this is where we're gonna start picking it up a little bit. So week 5, we're at the Panthers, and I think this is a win. We're gonna get back in the win column for the first time since September. Sam Darnold doesn't scare me. I don't think he scares the Eagles defense. Um, the only person who on that team who does scare anybody is Christian McCaffrey. And I think he's going to have a good game, but I don't think he's going to be enough to carry the team on his back. And I think we get back in the win column and move to 2-3.
Okay, so I agree. I think the Eagles take this one at Carolina. They'll be going to pull out the win in the sense of I don't think that Darnold's going to be a miracle worker in this one. I just think the defense, on both sides keeps this one close, and I think this game's a close game. But I think the Eagles pull out the win, and they'll go to 3-2 after week 5.
All right. So week 6. This is another one. This is a similar situation, similar game to the Chiefs game. We get the Bucks coming to Philly, and everything I said about that game applies to this game. There's Tom Brady comes to town. There's no Philly special. They make short work of us. We show a little bit more fight than we did against the Chiefs, but at the end of the day, they still wipe the floor with us and drop us to 2-4.
Yeah, I think the same thing here. Week 6, they drop to 3-3. My guess is here for the fact that of what you just said. Look, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. I just think they kind of at the end of the day, this is another round for him to continue his dominance. So yeah, after week 6, back to 3-3.
All right. So week 7, this is where I get to be optimistic. So we go out to the Death Star out in Las Vegas and face the Raiders. And I think it's going to be a tough game. It could really go either way. Where I see the major difference is we're going to be coming off playing the Buccaneers, a tough team, one that we really have to try and get up for. And the Raiders are coming off of playing the Broncos. And I don't think the Broncos are going to be anything this year. I think the Broncos are going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Drew Lock looked good in preseason, but I don't see him taking the next step during the regular season. I think he's going to be okay this season, but I don't think the Broncos are going to be tough. So I think that, the Raiders won't have to really play too hard against the Broncos. And I think they're going to come in maybe a little bit slow after that game. And the Eagles are going to be pissed off after getting the crap kicked out of them by the Bucks. So I think this is where we get back in the win column and we go up to 3-4.
And this is where I kind of continue the downward spiral for a little bit here. I honestly think that after Tom Brady, shows who he is in week 6, that the Eagles just can't get anything going. They're on the road. I think Derek Carr just goes bananas in this game, 300-plus yard game, and the Birds just can't get anything going. I'm not saying they look bad, but I think they lose, and I think that drops them to 3-4. So at this point, we're both even on the record, both 3-4.
That's right. Yeah. So which brings us to week 8, and this is where the Eagles go to Detroit, to Motor City, to face the hapless Lions. This one's much easier for me to call. I know the Eagles are just going to beat the crap out of them. Jared Goff starts questioning at halftime why God hates him. And everybody who was looking for the hotel rooms and airfare to Miami starts looking again. And Minshew Mania 2 has been put on indefinite hiatus at this point. The Eagles move to 4-4.
Yeah, my take is I completely agree. Eagles move back up to 500, back to 4-4. I honestly think that the Lions, Jared Goff is basically the only one suiting up, and he thinks he can, try to make that team, decent. It just doesn't happen. The Lions are awful at this point. I'd be surprised if they have more than a couple of wins, if that. And I think the Eagles exploit every single weakness. And I'm not going to make a prediction on the score. I just think they beat them up pretty good, and move up to 500.
All right, so week 9, Chargers at the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think this is going to be a loss. As well as they played the last 2 weeks, the Chargers are able to shake off the jet lag and beat the Eagles in a close game. Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts both have great games. Joey Bosa, though, gets revenge for his brother, manages to cause the nice little fumble and then recover it on what should have been the Eagles' game-winning drive. The Eagles fall to 4-5, and the plans for the Nick Sirianni statue are put on hold.
And I think this ends up being a close game. I think Justin Hebert proves that he's a better quarterback for now. I think down the road here, Jalen Hurts is going to end up, proving me wrong on that statement. But at this point, I think he just proves that he's the better QB, and the Eagles drop to 4-5.
All right.
Week 10. So we both have them at 4-5.
Yep.
Week 10, Eagles are at the Broncos. You and I both picked a win. So what do you got on this one?
So I think this is a big bounce back game for the Eagles. I think Drew Lock's going to be inconsistent. The Eagles defensive backs are going to have their best game of the season. I think we get 2 interceptions. Kenny Gainwell, this is going to be the first game of the season where he outgains Miles Sanders, in total yards from scrimmage. And he starts making himself more of a fixture in the offense. I do think Patrick Surtain II snags a pick 6 off of Jalen Hurts on the first Eagles drive. But I think at the end of the day, we win the game. Birds are back at 5-5 and back at 500.
Yeah, this is one I agreed with you there too. I think they win this one. I just don't think Drew Lock is going to be much of anything this year. I completely agree with I just I think he's going to be inconsistent throughout the season. I think this is a game where he'll be inconsistent. Eagles will exploit that. I don't see this necessarily. While it shouldn't be a close game, I just have a sneaky suspicion that it will be, and I think that more or less rise on the defense on this one. But they get the win on the road and go back to 500 at 5-5.
So this next game, week 11 with the Saints, as we talk about this, New Orleans is a place where Cam could end up as well. And that would certainly change my outlook on this game. But as I have it, I have the Eagles winning with the Saints coming to Philly, and they're going to march in, and that's where it fun ends for them. Eagles give a repeat performance of their win over the Saints from last year, but this time it isn't because Hurts surprises anyone. He's had a great start to the season, and this is where his season solidifies. The whole team is clicking. The offensive game plan is working like a well-oiled machine, and the defense has come together. There's still some mistakes made in the secondary, and they're not world beaters, but the Eagles are a solid team, and it shows as they move on to 6-5.
Yeah, with Breeze being gone, he was there for such a long time, and we can talk about Cam potentially showing up there. I just, if he's not there, I just don't see them having much going for them this season. Again, I could be wrong. Just my speculation, but I think that's a fair assessment. I think Cam could end up there. But let's say he's not there. I will just go with kind of what we had, not knowing what we knew today. I think the Eagles take this fairly easily, being a home game. They don't have to worry about somebody that could potentially throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. So they'll move to 6-5.
Although, with Jameis Winston there, he could throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, but the 5 touchdowns would be to the other team.
Exactly.
Now, this next game, week 12, Eagles at the Giants. The funny thing about this is I initially had this as a loss for the Eagles. After I went through and I was calculating everything, I don't feel like the Giants are going to be good enough this year. I think they're going to be the worst team in the division, and I don't think they have enough juice to beat the Eagles. Even at home, I don't think they have enough juice. What's interesting about this game too is that this is the first of 2 straight games at MetLife Stadium, because the Eagles play the Giants in week 12 and then the Jets in week 13. And I think the Eagles actually, it's a close one, but I think they win this game and improve to 7-5.
Yeah, that's fair enough. This is one I thought a little bit differently on, in the sense of, I think rolling into MetLife, needing at this point, to me, they're 6-5, needing a much needed division win, and they don't get it. And at this point, everyone's kind of freaking out because they're back to 500, 6-6, getting later in the season. And I would say that the playoffs are starting to look in doubt, but until everyone kind of looks back up and it's like, oh, they played the Jets next.
Yeah. Yes. So we can roll into week 13 against the Jets, and I'm pretty sure that this game is an Eagles win. Um, the Jets are already dealing with a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball, particularly on both lines, offensive and defensive. You've got a rookie quarterback. I think this is where Milton Williams has his coming out party. I think he's getting 2 sacks and a forced fumble, and I think that the offense is just gonna roll, and the Eagles are gonna roll to victory and improve to 8-5 as they head into the bye week.
I don't have much on this. It's the Jets. The Eagles will win, move to 7-6.
All right. So week 14, we get a bye week. Um,
Yeah, this is my guess here. Something crazy is going to happen. There's going to be some weird injury. There's going to be not necessarily the Eagles. I'm just saying something weird. Someone's going to get arrested. Something's going to happen. Like,
so, fans are going to get arrested at Gardner Minshew's house for trying to clip off his mustache.
yeah, exactly. Something weird in the NFL is going to go down during the Eagles bye week. I don't know what it is, and it
All
may
right.
not even involve the Eagles, but that's my Nostradamus moment.
Okay. All right. Week 15, Washington at Philadelphia. And we talked about it a little bit with where does Cam Newton fit in the NFC East. Um, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think his run of success against the Eagles ends this game. I don't think it's an easy win for the Eagles, but I do think it's a win. It's going to be a defensive struggle, and I feel like Jake Elliott's going to be having his best season since 2017. And in the most high pressure kick he has all season, he comes through to put them ahead. As time expires, the Eagles win the game.
So this one, I think the Eagles do win this. I think they move up to 8-6. However, I think that Hurts just goes bananas and just runs all over the football team. I don't know what he does, but I think he just has maybe not a career game on this one, but he just really, he's really locked in at this point and just runs all over Washington. Eagles win.
I like that better than mine.
Yeah, I'm being hopeful.
All right, so week 16, the Giants come to Philly looking to avenge their loss earlier this season, and it doesn't happen. The Eagles get a season sweep of the New York Football Giants. Danny Dimes gets turned into Danny Pancake. He throws a pick six, gets sacked 4 times. The defense absolutely just smashes the Giants. The offense runs roughshod over them, and they hold Saquon Barkley in check. He doesn't break the 100-yard mark. The Eagles improve to 10-5.
So after I call the Week 12 a loss, this is where I think the Eagles exact their revenge. They knew they weren't supposed to lose that game at MetLife, so back at the link, they take the Giants down. I think it'll end up still being a close game, just because at this point in the season you're toward the end here. I do believe the NFC East is going to be close, even with potentially a really bad team like the Giants thrown in the mix. But I still think they'll be hanging around long enough to make it interesting. Eagles get the win and move up to 9-6.
All right, brings us to week 17. Eagles at Washington. So, not too far between games for these guys. And I think that unfortunately for the Eagles, in front of the home crowd, Ryan Fitzpatrick transforms back into Ryan Fitzmagic. He rekindles his dominance of the Eagles and manages to throw the Washington faithful on a fantastic 2-minute drill touchdown to win the game. Drops the Eagles to 10-6 with a showdown with Dallas looming.
Yeah, so this is where I think the Eagles show up. I don't think Hurts does what I think he's going to do while Washington's at home, or excuse me, while Washington plays the Eagles at the link. But while they're at Washington, it's not quite a repeat of that performance. But I think they pull Washington's number again, and I just think this is going to be one of those games where I kind of agree with you on this one. Close game, defensive performance on both sides. And I think the Eagles pull it out, though. Again, one of those games by less than a touchdown. Eagles move to 10-6.
All right. So at this point, going into week 18, we both have the Eagles at 10-6. All right. Going into week 18, final game of the season, Cowboys in Philly. And we went different directions on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So it all comes down to this. There's a high probability that the outcome for this game will determine who wins the NFC East, whether it's one of the teams who's playing in the game or whether it's Washington. Again, I think the Giants are going to be god awful this year. I don't think that they're even in it at this point. But I think when it comes down to it, Jalen Hurts and the offense put up a heroic effort on the last day of the season. They send the fans home happy. They send the Cowboys back to Big D holding the big L, and the Eagles end the season at 11-6.
This is the one I differ on based on one thing and one thing only. If Prescott is healthy, I think this is the one that they'll lose by a field goal at home and they end up finishing out the year at 10-7. Now, do I think that that would happen at home? Of course not. But I really think if he stays healthy the entire year, that he's going to put up career numbers. He will. I mean, I think that highly of him now. I don't want him to. Um, I certainly don't want to see him get hurt. I don't want to wish that on anybody.
Right.
But I just really think he puts up a career season in 2021, especially after being shelved for part of last year. Now, he's not healthy though. I really would change my guess here to an easier win anyway. For the Eagles. But yeah, I think they finish out at 10-7. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and at this point and make any playoff predictions. I can see the Eagles as like a 9 or 10 win team. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe 11. It's interesting. I think that, like you're right, the division is set between them, the Cowboys, and Washington. A lot of it does depend on if can Fitzpatrick, be Fitzmagic, like you said, and does Dak stay healthy.
Right.
Um, Everything else is in the Eagles' hands at that point. That's how I feel.
I mean, that's these standings as we came up with them, of course, they take place in a vacuum, not taking really account. I was aside from what we mentioned, not really taking account for injuries, stuff like that. Um, and I was probably a little optimistic with my picks, and I base that on the fact that if I look at the teams, if I look at the Eagles and I say, well, looking at this roster, I'm thinking I'd say 8 wins, 9 wins. But honestly, they could go, I feel like they could go anywhere realistically from 8-9 to 11-6. And I think that those are realistic numbers just based on looking at the schedule and looking at, and obviously, 11-6 is a super best case scenario, super optimistic. Do I think that it'll happen? No, honestly, I can't imagine that they will. But running down the schedule like we did, it's something that could happen. And I'm not one of those people that's going to go into a season like, oh man, we suck, and spend the season just miserable. I'm going to go into
No,
the season hoping that my team does well and optimistic that they're going to play well. Um, if it was a situation where last year we went 0-16, then yeah, maybe I'd be uh, a little bit more worried. I'd be a little bit more down on the team if we wouldn't have made the major changes we made. If we would have kept Carson, if Doug would have still been here, I'd have been a little bit more down on the team. But seeing what we did in the offseason, just seeing the way that the team is really rallying around Jalen Hurts and just hearing all the stories come out of camp and out of the OTAs and everything, the guys love him, man. And you can't ignore when guys respect a player like that, when that's somebody they're going to want to play for, and that does something to a team. Obviously I never played it at high levels of any sports, but when you have teammates like that, they make you want to perform better and they make you into better players just by being there and just with their presence. So I could definitely see that being a case with the Eagles this year.
right. No, I agree. And I really think Jalen Hurts, I made this comment to you over text message at one time. You even made the QB Eagles reference here. I think he's the second coming of Randall Cunningham for the team. I really do love the you know the total package that he brings. Um, obviously I'm hoping that he stays healthy. But I do like the fact that Minshew's out there now for us, and we're not really having to worry about And I'm not knocking the guy, but players like Nate Sudfeld,
Right. Or Clayton Thorson or um, Matt McGloin.
yeah, exactly. You know there's a little bit more hope there whenever you have depth, and the Eagles are well rounded this year with young talent, bringing back some veterans that I've liked for a long time, and glad to see obviously the Brandon Brookses and the Jason Kelseys of the world back, and um, I just think it'll be a better than mediocre season. I can't predict playoffs, but you and I both know that anymore it doesn't take much to make the playoffs. So
Yeah. No, honestly, and the thing is, there's no reason why the Eagles can't be right in the thick of the race for the NFC East. And if you win the NFC East, you go to the playoffs.
yep, yep.
You know,
I think
I'm not saying they will win the NFC East, and I'm not saying that even if they get to the playoffs, I'm not saying that they'll do anything. It could be a one and done. But the fact of the matter is, this division is not great. And
no.
it's really anybody's division to win except for the Giants because the Giants suck.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a 3-team race. I'm not going to say I do think the Giants, kind of throw a wrench in the plans. Maybe not just of the Eagles. I think they throw a couple surprises out there and kind of upset the balance of the 3-team race, if you will.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, and
but
that's
they
the thing,
but they won't be up top. There's no way.
right? Like, I say the Giants suck, but the fact of the matter is, when it's the NFC East teams and any division rival teams really across the NFL have a tendency to play up to the better team that they're playing in their division.
Right.
So, while the Giants might play the Raiders and just get absolutely demolished, but they could play the Cowboys and the Cowboys could be, 10-0, and they're going to make it a game and they may even win. Same thing with the Eagles. That's why the very first game that the Eagles play in New York, I initially had them losing that game, and I went back and I changed it. But it could really go either way. And especially in the NFC East, it seems like the teams are they just beat the crap out of each other. And it's always, 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 you know, there's always a probability that they go 4-4 against each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's to me, and it's always been this way. Is one of the absolute best rivalries in any division in any sport. So I think it'll be fun. I think one thing we do need to do, we'll have to revisit this at the end of the season and kind of see where we fell. Now, granted, a lot of us stuff we kind of picked the same outcomes and we're really close on record. But a couple of these games that we were differing on, I'd be curious to see what actually happens. And I think the funny thing is, if the polar opposite happened, the whole thing they finished 0-17.
Oh yeah, well that no, see that now because we went through and did this, every game we picked them to win, like where we were both on the same page where they won, they're gonna lose. And every game where we were both on the same page for them to win, they're gonna or yeah, we
Yeah,
had them winning, they're gonna lose. Where we had them losing, they're gonna win. If we both picked the different things, they're gonna tie.
that's right. Yeah.
So how many ties do we have this year?
0-17. No.
Yeah, right. That'd be their friggin' luck. We don't get the
All right.
first. We don't get the first pick because we tied all of our games, but we don't win one.
Yeah, yeah. Hey guys, we had the undefeated season,
Yeah.
kind of. Oh man. All right, man. Well, that was fun. We'll have to definitely revisit this though, and hopefully we're wrong, and maybe they're like
Yeah.
17-0. So
Yeah. We'll have to maybe what we'll do is we'll revisit like week 9 and just see where we're at,
yeah,
and then we'll revisit obviously at the end and see how close we were and or how friggin' completely off the reservation we were. But should be a good season. I'm looking forward to it. And what else can I say but fly Eagles fly? And oh yeah, Dallas sucks.
Well, we've been the Noise Brigade.
We
Have a
have
great night,
been.
everyone.
Have a good night. And one more time with feeling, Dallas sucks.